Recording. And again, I know a number of you have heard me give this spiel already, but I'm going to go ahead and do it again. My name is Ann Grabowski, pronouns she, her, hers, and I'm going to be your host for today. Please acclimate yourself to the Zoom screen. We will be using the chat. We will be using the typical functions of our cameras and our facial expressions, or if we don't want to have our cameras on, again, using the chat, using raised hands, anything like that. If you are in a place or position where you are not able to turn on your camera or type in the chat, that's okay too. As long as you're getting what you need out of this presentation, I'm a happy camper. So it is 10 o'clock now. We usually have some people sliding in the last minute or so. So I'm going to give it another 60 seconds. And then we will go ahead and get started with today's event. This event is the first in a series. This is part of our Transforming Workplace Conversation series from ASAOE. So I'm so glad that you were able to join me today as we get this started. These are going to be something that I'm looking forward to attending in the future, so I can learn how to better my workplace conversations, how to better assist my students, and frankly, how to avoid putting my foot in my mouth occasionally, because hey, I do that from time to time. Nobody is perfect. All right, I can see we have one person who's kind of sliding in and out of the room, probably having some connection issues. That's perfectly okay. Every time I see you come in, I'll try to admit you. If it takes a moment, I do apologize for that. And again, if you're raising your hand or trying to get my attention and I have not paused to acknowledge you, please feel free to interrupt me. I just might not be able to see you. Okay. Every time I click out of the participation, it's like there's one more person, which is great. Just want to make sure we're good. Okay, cool. Hello again. Welcome. My name is Ann Grabowski, pronouns she, her, hers. I am a member of ASAOE, the Association for Student Advocacy, Outreach, and Education, and I am your host for today. I'll be here talking to you about body positivity and our body-focused language in the new year. I know at this time of year, it's early February. Everybody is thinking of those New Year's resolutions, working on those New Year's resolutions, commenting on how we have given up on our resolutions. And that can lead to a broader and deeper conversation in the workplace, particularly for folks who are carrying some extra emotional weight when it comes to talks around the body. Alrighty. And here's just to give you kind of an overview of what we're going to be discussing today. I'm going to start off by saying that some of the things I'm going to be talking about today are going to be very triggering. So this is your content warning, your trigger warning for some of the things we're going to be discussing. If you at any point need to tap out or, decide that this is no longer something that you're able to tolerate today, perfectly fine. I get that. I've been there, so just keep that in mind, that some of these topics are going to be a little heavier, and it's okay if you need to step away for a moment. But again, we're going to go through who I am. We're going to go through some terms that kind of surround the spectrum of eating disorders and how language and eating disorder history can impact how we do our jobs, how we attend class, and how we interact with people in those spaces as well. We're going to practice some of the new language and some of the new approaches that we're going to cover. So in addition to learning how to approach these topics, we're going to practice it a little bit in kind of a safer space. I always like to say, again, I said this at the beginning, sometimes we're going to make a mistake. Sometimes we're going to say something and 2 seconds later you have that thought of, oh, why did I say that? That was awful. I understand that. And this is a place of learning. However, if anybody goes into the realm of being just all out disrespectful, that will not be tolerated and I will remove you from the room. So that has not ever been an issue, thankfully, and hopefully that will not be an issue today. All of the activities that we're going over are something that you can do with your own groups later on. So please feel free to use these. And then we'll end with a discussion of the topics that we've covered. Now, I'm going to try to put in the chat here a participation guide. So let's see if I can get that over there. Give me just one moment, please. Trying to remember what I named the study guide. Just 2 seconds. I say this every time. I need to create hold music for when I'm looking for things to put in the chat. All right, that should work. I'm going to give that just a moment to load. So this is a participation guide that you can use as we're going through today. Just kind of gives a little bit more information on some of the topics we're covering and also has some additional resources, including if you or anyone you know is experiencing eating disorders, stress related to food, anything that we cover today, there's also some lifelines and some resources in there if we need immediate help. Alrighty, let me see here. You are very welcome for that participation guide. All right, let's get started. This is what we would call a theater stats sheet. This is my information, right? This is not something I typically include in my work presentations or in my work resumes. But in the name of body positivity and full honesty, there it is. And I'm not expecting anyone else to do this, but the point here is to say, you know what? There's nothing wrong with any of this. There's nothing particularly better about any of this than anything anybody else has to offer. And if I can offer this to, you know, one form of resume, one form of audition, I can offer it to another. But also, I'm more than this. I'm more than these basics that you see before you. Some of these things might be facts you don't know about me. I have a feeling most of you didn't know my shoe size, but that's in there now, you know. I am a writer, so I do have a lot of focus in language. I am a public speaker, which is why I'm here doing this right now, and I'm recovering from an eating disorder. I thankfully have been in recovery for a good number of years, going on about 12 or 13 years now, and I do apologize for pausing, still trying to let some folks in. But when I was in, let's say, late high school through early professional career, throughout college and into early mid-20s, I was suffering, and I'm not going to go too far into the details here, with a pretty severe eating disorder. It was something that was on top of every meal I had, every plan I made with someone to go out. It's something, thankfully, I sought help for, and it is something that I now know how much it's going to impact somebody on the day-to-day, right? And I know some of you might be in this group going, oh, yeah, no, I know what you mean. I've been there. I've done that. It's awful. And some of you might not know what that feels like. And that's okay if you don't know what that feels like. But what we're going to try to do today is get the understanding of how words may impact somebody who has experienced an eating disorder, may be on the verge of experiencing something, or may just be having a rough time in general with themselves, and how these words can carry much more weight than we initially give them or intend to give them. So let's go let's go over some basic terms. This is going to be kind of a flashback to health class, right? I'm going back to my 11th grade class and Mrs. Shewitt's health class, or Miss Shewitt's health class, learning about the various eating disorders and what that meant. So just a little bit of a refresher for those of us who it's been a little bit of time since we've been in health class. Eating disorders are kind of a blanket term, an umbrella term given to a number of conditions that impact primarily how people take in food and how that negatively impacts their health, their emotions, their mental state, and other areas of their life. And so the definition we have here is the Mayo Clinic's definition of an eating disorder. And you may very frequently these days see it abbreviated as ED. Having an ED or relating to ED, that is something that is kind of new to Twitter and to TikTok, because these are new social media spaces, or not brand new, of course, but newer social media spaces where people can go and discuss these conditions and typically use these abbreviations for a host of reasons. They may not want other people to know what they're talking about, or they may not want to say those words. It may be easier for someone to say, I had an ED than I had an eating disorder. So that's just words that folks might choose to use for comfort or for clarity. The three most common eating disorders in the United States are anorexia nervosa or anorexia, bulimia nervosa or bulimia, and binge eating disorder. We're not going to go too deeply into needing to remember the differences between A, B, and C, but these are the big ones, the ones people often think of when we think eating disorder, when we think body image issues. We think of the extremes. So there may be a number of folks suffering from these disorders that you see before you. But one thing I want to point out or sort of call to your attention is a lot of times when folks think of the body, the physicality of someone with an eating disorder, they tend to default to thinking of someone who has the body of a long-term anorexic. And I also want to go ahead and say at this moment, I am not a doctor, I'm not in the medical field, but I am well versed in these terms to kind of relay this knowledge. But if you feel that you may be anorexic, you may be verging on bulimic, anything in that ballpark, please go and speak with the doctor. But most people, when they think of someone with an eating disorder, they think of someone who is very thin, who may not have a lot of body mass and who's typically suffering from anorexia. But that's not always the case. You can't, as with many things, look at someone and say, this is what's going on with you. This is your condition. This is what's happening. People who are bulimic, for example, or who suffer from binge eating disorder may in fact present as having quote unquote healthy bodies, as having larger bodies, as taking up more space. I will say firsthand, I suffered from bulimia. That's what I was dealing with. And a number of people will straight up say to you, you don't look like you have an eating disorder. The hell does that mean? You know what I mean? No, that's not how we want to be thinking. So just keep in mind that we can't look at someone in our classroom, on our team, on our lunch break, and diagnose them. And that's not what we're trying to do. We're just keeping in mind that there may be people in our sphere who are dealing with these situations that are impacting every moment and every thought that they're having. Just check the chat real quickly here. Okie dokie. So just some more information on just how many people are impacted by eating disorders and by these thoughts, feelings, and everything that comes with it. 30 million Americans. So we're only looking at the population of the US right now. It's a much greater problem worldwide. But in the United States, 30 million people suffer from an eating disorder or have had experience with an eating disorder. I also want to check my own language really quick here. I keep saying suffering from an eating disorder. Other people might not like that language. They may choose to say experiencing an eating disorder, recovering from. So just keep in mind, just because that's the verbiage I chose, may not be what somebody else would like to go with. But of these 30 million people, 95% of them are between the ages of 12 and 25. So when we think of that age group, right, 12 to 25, these are our students. These are our coworkers, right? Students are getting out of college at 21, 22, 23. If we're going to trade school and we're not doing the traditional four-year college, even earlier than that, they're in the workforce with us. They're in meetings with us, and they are side by side. So this isn't a distant problem. This isn't a problem of something that we dealt with when we were all younger. This is with us, amongst us as we speak. And again, 95% is not 100%. So what I mean by that is there's still 5% of people who are not in that 12 to 25 age range, who may not fall into what we, again, picture of someone who is experiencing an eating disorder, but who do carry that weight on a daily basis. There really is no one specific place in the US where we can say that eating disorders are more prevalent than another. There are certain areas connected to certain jobs, if you will, certain career paths where you might see it. The example people give is, well, what about New York and LA? We hear a lot about people out there or over there. I say out there and over there because I'm in New Mexico. So those are distant places for me at the moment. But in New York and LA, we see a lot of people who may be experiencing eating disorders. We see a lot of advertisements for clinics, for meetings, for groups, for people suffering from these things. And that's because the entertainment industry is very popular in New York City and in Los Angeles. So sometimes the where has to do more with the what's happening there. So maybe the jobs, but really even in very small rural communities, all the way up to the most dense urban communities, all of these groups have high levels of eating disorders. And frankly, the trajectory is going up. And what we mean by that is we're finding more people now than, let's say, 50 years ago who will openly identify as having experienced an eating disorder. And why do we experience eating disorders? I gave an example just of one being, entertainment industry, but who amongst us hasn't been watching a commercial, a television show, a play, a movie, somebody walking past them on the street and thought, oh, wow, I really wish I could look like that. That individual looks fantastic. I wish that was me. It must feel so good, so freeing to look like that. It's something that a lot of people experience, and it's something that our environment, being the media, the world we work in, really shoves down our throat. I mean, there's not a nicer way to say it. There's a lot of focus on how we look, why we look the way we do. And that's why we want to talk about body positivity today. When we're talking, when we're talking about body positivity, it's taking the focus away from value based on appearance. Because when we put value on appearance, then we run the risk of things like what we're going to see in this video, people experiencing these sorts of thoughts. So let's go ahead and watch this. And if somebody could please let me know if they can hear this when this gets started. Can you hear the music? Anybody?
I hate having meals with other
No.
people.
Oh, now I can.
Watches me
Okay.
eat. I can't
Thank
deal
you.
with these feelings. I know what. I'll skip supper and snack. I'll concentrate on that. Everyone would be better off without me. I'm a horrid person for them to live with. Oh goodness, they've asked me out twice now. I can't say no. They'll think I'm so weird. It would be really nice to go and have a change of scene. They wouldn't have asked me if they didn't like me. I need to go home and check the menu and find the lowest calorie meal. It probably just feels sorry for me anyway. That's why they've asked me. What will I wear? Surely they will all think I'm boring. I should be able to do my shopping. I'm not normal. Other people don't feel this way. No one can even tell I'm struggling. What's wrong with me? I need to check all the labels and get the right brands. I don't deserve to spend this much money on myself. It'll be fine. Leave it. Just get out of here. Look at how happy they look. They have so many friends. My life is so boring compared to them. They have so much confidence. I put that picture up hours ago and no one's liked it yet. Maybe I should just take it down, or maybe I should leave it up for 30 minutes more. I don't know what to do. Maybe others are noticing that I'm not okay. Maybe it's okay to let someone into this nightmare. No way. I'm not poorly enough. They'll think I'm pathetic, or mad, or both. They couldn't help me anyway. I don't even know what this is. But if I start to get better, then maybe everyone will think that I'm coping, and I'm not coping. At least this way, I feel in control, and it's safe. What if they try to make me change? I don't think I can do that.
Okay, so just cutting off the end there, which was an advertisement for a service in the UK. And I don't believe any of us are currently in the UK, but if so, please feel free to click back in and watch the rest of that video. So you can see these are the kind of thoughts that people are having when they think that everyone is focused on their body when they themselves are focused on their body. It's not our responsibility as leaders, coworkers, teachers to diagnose or to this is not the word we want to use, or to fix these issues for anyone. But the point of watching that video and the point of recognizing these thoughts is it gives us a second to pause before we choose certain words, because we're more aware of the impact that those words may have. And when we focus on body positivity, away from, if your body is not this, that, or the other, it's not good enough, we tend to use language that is more inclusive and that is easier for folks who have these experiences. So the actual definition of body positivity, which really is, people think of it as a newer term, but it really kind of has grown from the feminist movement, from the civil rights movement, and from a whole bunch of intersectional things coming together to create this idea. And the notion behind body positivity is that no matter how your body is, what your body is, the attributes it may have, it is good. It is positive. Your body is doing the things it needs to be doing for you, regardless of whether or not it is magazine thin or super buff or any of these things. Your body is good because it is your body. It's doing what it needs to do. Another thing that goes along with body positivity that sometimes gets confused with body positivity is the concept of body neutrality. There is a lot of similarity between body positivity and body neutrality, but body neutrality is more that focus on respect. So your body is not bad, but it's also not good. It is. We respect it for what it does, but we don't necessarily need to compliment or highlight. We don't need to love or hate our bodies. We don't have to feel about our bodies. So for the purposes of today and for what we want to take away, we are leaning more toward body neutrality, body positivity, but with a little sprinkle of body neutrality in there as well. And we want to practice these words, and I'm sorry, I'm looking over at my cat who may very well knock my ring light over, so if the lighting changes, don't worry about it. We're going to practice some of the language that we want to use, because I keep talking about, okay, don't say this and think about this and consider this, but what are we actually say? What do we get out there? If we want to give a compliment to a student, to a coworker, to anyone in that sphere, we can still do that and be body positive or body neutral. And we can do that by focusing on actions or by appearances that are chosen. You may have heard this adage before, it's not a good idea to comment on the way someone looks unless it's to help them in the moment. So for example, if I have a huge piece of spinach in my teeth, I would think it would be perfectly okay if someone were to go, "Hey, Anne, you got some spinach," because I can remove that spinach within 5 minutes. I don't have to change my life to get rid of the spinach. But if somebody says, "Hey, Anne, that top's a little tight," what am I going to do about that? In the next 5 minutes, I probably don't have a backup shirt. I'm not going to suddenly drop 10 pounds, start running laps around the office to make the shirt fit better. Because I cannot fix something in 5 minutes, it's best not to tell me about it. So that's a good adage to keep in mind. And to take it to the next level, again, focus on choices when it comes to appearances. So if we want to be completely safe and stay in the neutral zone, the body neutral zone, we will focus only on actions. So good job, fantastic project. I value your thinking, I value your input. We appreciate the work that you're putting in, and then I'm glad you're on our team. We don't want to give platitudes for the sake of giving them, of course, because that gets old quick, right? But these are ways that we can show somebody we appreciate what they're doing. We can sort of bestow value upon them without it being tied intrinsically to how they look. And if we want to give a compliment on how someone looks, maybe they've said, "Hey, I work really hard on this, that, or the other. I like it when somebody compliments my dress, my hair, my shoes, what have you." Focus on things that people choose. So for example, cool makeup. I like the color you chose, because that is a choice. Makeup is a choice. Nice earrings. Earrings are something that people pick out. I like your outfit. That's a really cool tie. I really like those shoes, because that individual probably picked them out, or someone they cared about picked them out for them. And they decided whether they were going to wear outfit A or outfit B today. And also, and this is one you do want to be a little bit careful with, but hey, compliment a tattoo. If someone took the time to wear something that displays a lovely rose they have on their arm, hey, that looks really nice. That's a really nice piece of art you have. And just so you know, I'm not throwing people in there out of nowhere. That's one of my tattoos. So I think that's an okay compliment. But again, if someone says, "I'd rather you didn't say that to me," try something else. Try one of the action-based compliments, or refocus the thinking. I had someone ask if we would share the link to the video. I'm going to see if we can get the recording out to everybody once we're done. It's going to take probably a couple days. And then I will, toward the end here, when we get to our discussion, see if I can get that link shared. So thank you for that question. So let's try some of, try this and not that. Some quick thinking things that we can keep in our mind to know, is what I'm about to say going to be offensive? Is the person I'm talking to going to carry this with them for the rest of the day? One of the best pieces of advice that I found, and I really wish it was an anonymous piece of advice on Reddit, of all places, that mentioned if you really want to try to refocus your thinking, try to omit the word look. Treat the word look as if it is a naughty word. We don't want to be saying that. So instead of saying, "You look great," you are great. So we don't have to be worrying about, "Oh, I look great. Did I not look great yesterday? Oh, I put a lot of effort into this outfit. This means I have to put a lot of effort into this outfit every day for the rest of my life, or I'm going to look like garbage." That line of thinking may not make sense to you. That may seem extreme, but I can promise you that's where some people go. That's where I've gone occasionally. You never really know what's going to send you down that thought of, is my body okay? Is my appearance okay? So just removing look, easy fix. And again, as I said in the previous slide, you can give a compliment, you can be positive, but avoid being size specific, even if that size to you sounds like a compliment. So if you go to someone and say, "Oh, wow, you're so buff," maybe that person is trying to slim down. Example being, I know people who are dancers who throughout their work and their exercise, you get the muscle, you get the body tone, but maybe you don't want quite as much tone because it doesn't have the look that you want for this, that, and the other. So even though somebody saying "you're so buff" to them sounds like a compliment, the person hearing it might hear "you're not meeting your goals. People don't see you as you wish to be seen." So instead of being size specific, we'll just be general. "You're so awesome." And it's true. You're saying something similar without it being about the value of the person's body. And again, as I said before, a good rule of thumb is to focus on choices. "Oh man, I wish I had your metabolism." I know a lot of people, there's somebody who's very close to me, who is very trim and very muscular, and they get compliments all the time. "Oh, I wish I had your metabolism." And they hate it. They hate when people say that to them because they don't want to be trim. They don't like that about themselves, but people assume that's a positive. People assume a compliment is being given. So, we didn't opt into our metabolisms, most of us, I assume. So let's not focus on that. That was not a choice. So "I wish I had your style. I wish I had your purple hair. I wish I had your" fill in something that person clearly chose to present. Or if we don't want to focus on appearance, choose an adjective that is not appearance based, that is based on achievement, based on things the person is doing. And of course, as the 90s kid I am, I had to work the Spice Girls in here. If you are following these rules, you're doing everything exactly as I have said, and somebody takes you aside and says, "Hey, can you stop telling me I'm awesome? It makes me feel weird. I don't like it. It's just, I feel, don't do it." Then you should stop doing it. There is no one rule of thumb or a broad brush that we can paint with to say, if you say this, every person will be happy and feel content and feel seen. So if you say, "Hey, I really like that tattoo. That looks so cool." And the person says, "Thanks. I'd really appreciate if you didn't point those out in the office." Okay. Thank you for telling me. I know in the future. We're all going to make mistakes, and don't beat yourself up for that. Think of it this way. If that person took the time to say, "Hey, you know what? I don't like this," they're comfortable sharing that fact with you, updating you, and then you can update and change for the future. I have kind of a personal story with this. I used to work with an individual, this was some time ago, who was, if you're familiar with the term love bombing, every other word was a compliment. So love bombing, if you're unfamiliar, is when you can't get a word in edgewise because they're just telling you how much they love you, how wonderful you are, how perfect you are, you're great to work with, life is better because you walk this earth. And after a while, or sometimes right away, it gets old, it gets a little uncomfortable. And I took a coworker aside and said, "Hey, I appreciate this. I appreciate being appreciated, but it's a bit much. It makes me uncomfortable. Could you not?" And this person took offense to that. "Well, I'm just giving a compliment. Why would you not want to receive a compliment?" This ended up escalating to a borderline HR issue, and it came back to somebody telling me, "And maybe try not to be so sensitive. They're being nice." And also that's our plug for the Don't Be So Sensitive event we have later on for ASAOE. Go ahead and sign up for that. But the point is, that did not hit the way the person wanted it to hit. They probably thought I was going to hear that as, "Oh, okay, I guess I'm overreacting. They're just being nice." But what I actually heard it as was, okay, this person telling me don't be so sensitive is not a safe person. I cannot share certain things about myself with them, and I need to be guarded because even though I've been forward with what I'm comfortable and not comfortable with what my boundaries are. That doesn't matter. So again, if somebody says, even though you followed these rules, I don't like what you said, adjust. You know, again, I will be the first to say I make mistakes frequently. So we're all going to do it. And the point is to learn from our mistakes and do better next time. All right, so let's actually get into some interaction. And so this will be a good time for unmuting, for participating in the chat, whatever you're most comfortable with. So let's get into this hypothetical here. So you're working in a lab as part of either your job or your schooling, and your lab mate is somebody who takes a lot of care in their appearance. So they have a new hairstyle every week or a new outfit, new shoes, and they enjoy receiving compliments. They've even said it to people. Thank you for complimenting this. I like when people compliment this, that, or the other. But they've also mentioned to your professor, you know, I don't like compliments that focus on modern beauty standards or on the size, shape, or quality of my body. So this person has given a boundary, but they have said, hey, I still like receiving compliments. I'm down with body positivity. Or I'm down with focus-based compliments and positive compliments being given. So with all these things in mind, either in the chat or you can unmute and just start talking, what are some examples of compliments that you could offer that would respect these boundaries and that would not be based on appearance? This is always the part where nobody wants to go first, and I totally understand that. So does anybody want to be brave and offer?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. You could say your style is great without putting it on.
Exactly. Yeah, your style is great. You can tell that they're trying, right?
Yeah.
That's good. And right, you don't have to be a certain size to have style.
No.
Very good. Awesome. Thank you for that. All right, let me check the chat here. I see we have somebody over here. Yep, again, you have such a great sense of style. Oh, I like this one. Your self-expression is awesome. So your way of bringing you to the world is fantastic. I like that one. Your self-expression is awesome. One thing I want to note, avoid the use of the word interesting if possible, because sometimes I said that I could see a few people's faces go, oh yeah. If you say, hey, that style is interesting, that has a little bit of a different weight than that style is awesome. Your self-expression is awesome, is good, is great. So these are great examples. What else? Let's get a couple more people in here.
It's funny, my mother said that to me yesterday about my outfit.
Really?
It's very interesting today.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Mom.
Mm-hmm. Well, my mom always used to say, and I say this with love, so I'm not giving her any grief, is she'd say, oh, that was a choice. That outfit's a choice. Yeah, it is. But again, focus on choices. That's good. Yeah, you know what? That's great. All right, let me check the chat here. Anybody else for this one? Anybody else have anyone they want to offer? Okay, got one in the chat here. I like this one. Shannon says, a cashier said to me that my jewelry was very not normal, but I took it as a compliment. And some interactions are just awkward. That's true. I'm, you know, sometimes you're just weird and that's okay. And I've had people say similar things to me. I've said similar things to people, and I think that's good that you take that as a compliment. Not normal might be good. You know, frankly, if you tell me I'm not normal, I'm going to go, thank you. That's great. Oh, I like this word. Somebody's saying you are so vibrant today. I love that word. Yep, and Tammy points out, definitely don't want to say interesting, because as we all know, that's a weighted word for sure. All right, let's try looking at some things people have said and identifying what's maybe not so great about it. No donuts for me. I pigged out at lunch. And again, either in the chat or if you want to unmute yourself, you can have multiple people going at a time. What's wrong with this? What's wrong here? Because this one doesn't focus necessarily on size, but remember when we're talking about how people might be thinking. Okay, very good. Thank you, Tammy. Tammy says pigging out is self-deprecating. Eating, or Casey says equating eating is a negative, and Courtney says using the term pigged out is dehumanizing. Quite literally, yes. Fantastic. All of these are 100% spot on. So when we shame ourselves for eating, we're inadvertently shaming those around us. It may not be intentional, and some folks may say, well, I'm not responsible for how they take what I say, and to an extent that's true. But understanding how people might be hearing that, it's, if I say, oh, I feel so, all right, I'll say it, I feel so fat today, I feel lumpy, I feel whatever, somebody might feel the need to come to me and say, oh, no, you're not fat. Oh, no, you look fine. Oh, no, you don't look this, that, and the other. But what if there is someone else in the room who is a larger size than me, who may also be having those feelings? Are they hearing, oh, this person who's smaller than me thinks they're awful. How awful am I? Are they thinking, oh, is this a standard I'm not applying to myself that I should be? Because it can even go beyond size. Even if someone doesn't have an issue with their body, they've not experienced eating disorders, if they have a great respect for someone in a position of leadership, and that person says, oh, I'm ugly, I'm fat, I'm too thin, that person who respects that leader might think, oh, maybe this is a standard I should be applying to myself that I have not considered. So we want to keep that in mind. So here's another thing. I have heard this verbatim. This is a quote I took from a space I was in, let's say. Someone going to another coworker going, oh, look at you, skinny mini. What's wrong with that? My favorite part of this are some of the facial expressions, because yeah, glorifying being small. There's absolutely nothing wrong with being small, but exactly, we don't want to glorify body A over body B. You heard me say I am not a doctor. I know we have a good number of folks in this room, so some of you may be doctors, some of you may be studying to be a doctor in the future. But if you're not in the moment, don't get into the diagnosis sphere. That's a good one. Skinny is not necessarily a compliment, but we treat it as one. People might not be small by choice. And again, as we said previously, person A may be insulting person B, and they could have an issue with being small. Very good. They might not want to be small. We have somebody saying, my daughter struggled all through high school because everyone wanted to be as skinny as she was. And she was so happy when she put on weight in college because she didn't want to be what others thought she wanted to be. Does that make sense? So perfect. You guys are all, or I should say you folks are all hitting the nail on the head here. So come on, PowerPoint. There we go. It's okay to be thin. If we're going with body positive, it's wonderful to be thin. If we're going with body neutral, it is to be thin. So there's nothing wrong with being thin, but that focus is the problem. So as many people pointed out, weight loss, weight gain may not be by choice, and it may not be desired. Even though somebody may really think that, that person over there has the perfect body, I would do anything, go on any diet, go on any exercise regimen to have their body, not knowing that that person over there is looking back at the first person going, oh, if I could look like them. So really, we don't want to put anyone on a pedestal as having the correct body. There is no correct body. The correct body is the one that is working. All right, when did you get those muscles? I didn't know you were so ripped. This was said to somebody while I was walking with them one time. And you ever see somebody want to just fall into a hole and disappear? This was one of those moments. So what's wrong here? When did you get those muscles? I didn't know you were so ripped. Giving some folks some moments here. So this one's kind of similar to the last one to a degree, right? Oh, I like this one. Okay, so it can come across as degrading. Yes, absolutely. Somebody saying what was wrong with me before. That is perfect. That is a question a lot of people come to when they receive a compliment that maybe doesn't hit with the impact that the compliment giver intended. So, oh, you look great today. What was wrong with me yesterday? You look super buff. When did you get so ripped? What did I look like before? Yep. And it's, somebody says maybe they don't want to be ripped. Maybe they wish to be more toned down. And we have somebody saying it's a bit too personal, and that's true. It's too personal, and that's really what we want to focus on here. Nobody owes their coworkers an ongoing update on their body. So let's go back to my stat sheet in the beginning, right? I had, my height, my weight, all that kind of stuff. I would update that for a theater resume. So if I were to go audition for something and one of those stats was incorrect, I'd update it and give it out again. I'm not going to update my boss or my classmates or, my friends with that sheet. And no one should be expected to do anything like that. That's silly. The first thought with, oh, I gained weight, I lost weight should not be, I must go report this to my coworkers. That's strange. We don't want to be doing that. And that's kind of what you say when you point out a drastic change in someone's body. If they aren't mentioning it, you should not be mentioning it. So if I, come to work and I have, I'm trying to think of some strange change. If I've suddenly done something with my body that's very different, I don't know what that can be in this instance, but let's say I drastically changed the way I walk for this reason or another. Maybe there's a health reason. Maybe I've had work done on my hips or my back, so I need to carry my body in a different way. I don't need every cubicle I pass having someone pop up say, oh, hey, this is different. You're walking different. You're being different. I know, I'm aware. Thank you. We don't owe anyone these updates, and we don't want to get in the habit of feeling like we owe people these updates. And again, same with telling someone they're skinny or they look thin, skinny mini, anything like that. You're so skinny, you're so buff. People might not want to be. And just because you think it's a compliment doesn't mean that your coworker or student is going to hear it like that as well. All right, let's end on this one, which I think we've all heard at, the office potluck or the family reunion for me, for sure. Oh, come on, one cookie's not going to hurt you. One cookie won't kill you. One burger's not going to matter. What's wrong with that? Yep, under pressure. Yep, somebody's undue pressure. Sorry, I thought that was funny. That's going to be my song now, is undue pressure. Not respecting boundaries. Very good. Disregard for choices. That's great. Yeah. If you are not my gastroenterologist, you are not the one who gets to say whether or not it will hurt me to eat a cookie. If you're not me or my medical team, you don't know. You have no idea. And yes, this is perfect. Elizabeth mentions, you don't know my triggers. Hearing, hey, oh, one cookie won't hurt. Yeah, maybe it won't, but maybe that one cookie and the social pressure to eat that one cookie then makes that person go off by themselves and have a relapse of some sort. It happens. Again, you are not responsible for diagnosing or treating these conditions within your employees or your students, but you do want to be cognizant of the impact that you're having there. Yep, I like this. What I eat doesn't affect you in any way. And that is true. Unless we are both hungry and there is one singular crouton left. I went with croutons because I really like croutons. And we're both fighting for that crouton. What I eat does not impact you. Perfect. So yeah, what someone else decides to eat or not eat is their personal business. In addition to body size, body positivity, if we're thinking of, I know a good number of folks here were in the chronic illness presentation I did. Sometimes people who have to go in for screenings, who have to go in for appointments, are not allowed to eat or not allowed to drink for a period of time, or can only eat or drink specific things. So in addition to maybe making them feel less than great about their bodies, you're then asking them to volunteer medical information when you force someone to eat or not eat or focus on what they're doing. So don't do that. Don't say, oh, one cookie won't hurt. You don't know that. We'll leave the cookie there. All right, I see we have a raised hand from Jessica. You want to go ahead?
Hey, I was just wondering, if we're talking about students specifically, because unfortunately, the average college student, keeps themselves so busy, they don't think about eating, they
Yeah.
don't make time, they don't prioritize eating. And I've been guilty of making sure that like when I plan their schedules, like, okay, this is so you have a lunch break. Like I keep going back to that. Like I want you to have a lunch break and I'm pushing them, but then I also hear them say, well, it's okay, I'll eat whenever. Like it's not important to them, but it was important to me for them. And I'm like, is that wrong? Or when they come in my office and they're talking about how they haven't eaten in
Yeah.
so many days, like because they got something going on, like with mental, emotional health. And I'm like, is it wrong to push in that sense? Because I know that it's very unhealthy. And if you go too long without eating, it could cause
Yeah.
health problems.
Right. No, that's a fantastic question. Thank you for that question. That does get murky especially when we're helping students. So my past in financial aid, we did have a few students come to us and say, I don't know how to go to the food bank, but I need food, I need help. And how do we assist those students? How do we make sure that they're eating? It can get difficult when we are not a medical professional, but there are some tricks that we can do to assist students. So the one that I learned from my own experiences having an eating disorder when I was in college. Spaces where students can take food and leave with it. So if you're offering food, don't offer cookies on a tray because you kind of have to eat the cookie there or wrap it in a tissue or something like that. Offer Nutri-Grain bars, and again, I'm not sponsored by Nutri-Grain, just something that is in a wrapper that if the student chooses to eat it now or later, because maybe they really want to eat, but they don't want to eat in front of you, or they don't want to acknowledge that they're eating, that's an option. It also allows you to say, I would feel more comfortable if when you leave, you take a bag of gummies on the way out, a bag of the Welch's gummies that I have by the door. And the student can then say, okay, fine, and take the bag and leave. And they don't have to report to you if they've consumed it, but they have it with them in their possession as an option. If you have a student who you're really concerned about the medical, we're at that point of they're not able to think clearly, they're not able to exist because of where they are, then typically we would say intervention with either their academic advisor, or if you're in a university like Penn State, for example, CAPS, which is the counseling program. It's a hard line to walk, but I will always err on, I would rather embarrass myself and help somebody than the other way around. So if we have students specifically who were worried about whether or not they're eating, some of these rules may be a little bit different, but I would still say, don't force food on people, make the food available and create an open space for talking about food if they want to. So don't ask them to report how often they've eaten, but ask, are you hungry? So we don't have to share information, but we can get information. Yeah, that one's a tough one, but that's a great question. That is a fantastic question. And again, the ability to take food away and leave with it is huge for a lot of our students.
I have that in my office. Sorry, I'm a disabilities counselor.
Oh,
I have
fantastic.
like a bucket of Nutri-Grain bars and the snacks in between my two couches. So if a student's sitting there, they could just grab it. And I have some on my desk too, but that way it's not like right there in the open where it's like, ooh, see, I'm taking a candy bar. That way they could delicately grab it
Mhm.
without And if I know that there's somebody that has a food insecurity, that's what we call it here. I'm like, oh, I'm hungry. Do you mind throwing me a candy bar or
Mhm.
whatever? And usually then they grab one for themselves as well. I'm a
That's
foodie.
fantastic. And actually, thank you for sharing that. And actually, if I can jump off of that, one thing that you said reminded me of another bit of advice. Sometimes folks, especially in classrooms, have rules about, no food or drink on the desk. I understand food and drink can be distracting, and I understand sometimes it's, to the nth degree of, oh, we're throwing it around now. We're having a small food fight in the classroom. If you can, omit any rules around eating or drinking in the classroom. So if a student is taking their juice out and having a sip, that's cool. If they need to eat a couple goldfish crackers, that's cool, because for all we know, that might be the one moment they got in their head, like, okay, I can do it, I can do it. All right, I ate a bite of food today, I'm good. Or I know, and that's not quite where we want them in the long run, but the fewer parameters we put around food, the safer we make the space for our students. So yeah, shout out to Jessica and to Catherine for sharing that. Those were great. Those comments were great. And I want to add at the end here, just sort of a thought to wrap it up with. The quote that I used in the handout was a Mitch Hedberg quote, which I'm sure is showing my age a little bit, but the Mitch Hedberg quote was, "You can't please all the people all the time, and last night all those people were at my show." And what that means is you can do everything correct. You can make every positive word choice, every adjustment to your previous word choice, and still mess up. And that's okay. Again, the point is to get back up, try again. And this is a quote that I look at quite a bit with my own writing, but it really made me think of this reframing our language. When asked how he writes, when people ask, how do you write to Stephen King? He answers, one word at a time. And that's how we change our language. That's how we change our thinking. How do I not make this mistake? How do I make my coworkers or my students feel better? One word, one update at a time. And with that, I will thank you all so much for joining me. We do have some time here for discussion. We are bumping up against the 11 o'clock hour, and I know a lot of us have places to be. So again, I will work on getting the recording out. If anybody has to bounce off of the meeting, that is perfectly fine. But otherwise, please feel free to ask any questions, to share any thoughts you may have. And again, just thank you so much for joining me. This has been a blast. Yep, somebody asked for a copy of the slides. Let me see if I can get a copy of the slides into the chat here. It's doing that circle of thinking, so hopefully that will be available. And thank you all for joining and for participating. And especially thank you to people who are sharing their own individual experiences and experiences that their families were having. If you would have told college Anne that this presentation would be happening, or that I'd be talking about this to people, I'd be like, hey, you're funny. But this is great. And this has been a wonderful, helpful group. Also, I'm going to put our, you're probably very familiar with our website, but asaoe.org is where you'll find all of our other events. We have a huge amount of events coming up, and like I said, especially with our Conversations in the Workplace series, of which this was the first event, I'm really looking forward to hearing how to have some conversations myself. So please join us for those. Please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or to my email with any questions or any requests. If you have a group that you would like us or me to speak to, that would be something that we would like to discuss with you. Give a pause for any other questions here. And again, if you'd like to go ahead and unmute yourself, feel free to do that. Thank you everyone for coming. Okay, I think I'm gonna go ahead and close down our meeting. Again, please feel free to send me any messages, and I look forward to seeing you in future events. Bye, everybody.